Live. Hello, everybody. Good evening, and welcome to episode number 62 of the Below the Yellow Line podcast. I am your host, Joe Lanny Pavlon, alongside with me, Daniel Ford, and later on we'll have Austin LaPlante join the discussion panel for what was a very dynamic race weekend at Atlanta Motor Speedway for the NASCAR Cup Series. We had high-speed, action-packed racing for 500 miles yesterday. We'll get into all that with the IndyCar, as well as some of the off-track discussions regarding some of the recent events. But first, let's go ahead and talk about the Cup Series race at Atlanta. Wow, wasn't that something for Kevin Harvick?
Talk about a dominant performance. Well, being Martin Truex Jr. won the first two stages, and then Kevin Harvick coming out of nowhere to win the entire race.
Yeah. Well, so Kevin Harvick won the race after leading 151 laps, his 51st career win. Harvick started ninth. This is Harvick's third win in Atlanta and his second win of 2020. His other victory came at Darlington, the very first race after COVID-19 pandemic. Kyle Busch, once again, another second place finish in 2020, meaning 7 laps from fourth off the starting lineup. Busch's teammate, Martin Truex Jr. This is one of the few tracks Truex has really, really good speed, but just can't seem to close the deal, get the win. Stage 1, stage 2, as Danny mentioned, 65 laps were led by that number 19 car. He started 11th. Ryan Blaney, like Martin Truex Jr., still struggling to find that first win of 2020. Ryan Blaney finished 4th. He led 2 laps, started from the 7th spot. Denny Hamlin, the 2012 winner of this race back when they ran it in the summer conditions, so he kind of has a feel for racing this track at really hot weather.
Right. Yeah.
Finished 5th. He started 5 spots back in the 10th position. Kurt Busch, the 2-time winner at Atlanta Motor Speedway, led 1 lap, finished 6th, and started 12th. Jimmy Johnson, in his last Atlanta start, who was the Grand Marshal of the race. We'll get more into that later, pre-race. Johnson started 15th. Chase Elliott, who drew for pole, as there were no qualifying sessions for this race, led 26 laps, finished 8th. Brad Keselowski, the 2-time winner of the Atlanta 500, finished 9th after leading 5 laps from 6th on the grid. And Joey Logano, who led 10 laps from 3rd place off the starting lineup, finished 10th. A few notables include Alex Bowman, finishing 12th, a lap down after starting 8th. Tyler Reddick, rookie of the race, finished 16th, started 24th. Clint Bowyer finished 20th after leading 58 laps from 5th on the grid. He experienced some issues in the race, which set him back during pit stops. And William Byron never recovered from his flat tire. Byron started 20th. Well, we did see a lot of stuff before the race started. And NASCAR had a very moving message before the race began.
Indeed, they did, man. It was definitely an emotional moment for me, where they paused. They did like a 30 seconds of a time to reflect, about the racial injustice and the police brutality or what's going on in the black community. And I just want to give a big thank you to NASCAR for seeing that this is happening, because this kind of things can't go away if we don't make change. And if you want to make change, you have to start with yourself. So I would just want to say a big thanks to NASCAR for making that change and stepping up to the plate and saying something because now's the time.
Yes, thank you. Now we have Austin LaPlante. Welcome to the podcast. How are you doing?
Well, after yesterday and hearing just a bit of the tail end of Danny's thoughts, hopefully things will get better.
Thank you, Austin. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, I think a lot of us can agree because um, what's been happening in this country in the last 2 weeks certainly has painted a picture of really the stress 2020 has put on many people, and there's there's a dynamic um, of anger, very understandable from people in ethnic minorities, racial minorities that need their voices heard, and I give NASCAR credit for acknowledging the recent events.
Correct.
And when when the race, before the race started, during the pre-race ceremony, including Steve Phelps, Phelps' message when they stopped before the green began the race, NASCAR official took a knee, and Bubba Wallace wore the "I Can't Breathe" shirt, which is part of Black Lives Matter, along with other crew members. With that said, let's get into the race itself. And how did Kevin Harvick score his 51st win?
Oh, you're asking both of us. I thought you were gonna get into the details at that time.
No, I think I said enough of that. Kevin Harvick. I would definitely say that he is championship material. If you know 2014, 2014 was a championship that Harvick found luck at the very end.
Oh yeah, especially with the what's the word? With the way how the chase system rearranged that year with the round of 12, with the round of 16, round of 12, round of 8, and the championship four.
Yeah, NASCAR did beat
Kevin,
the format.
Kevin Harvick stepped up all the way and made sure, well, and he made a statement.
But we know he's more than just a one-time champion. With that kind of talent, at his age,
And he
Kevin
nearly
Harvick's
did
years are leaving the sport, and he's still in his prime, scoring wins like any other driver.
Somehow.
exactly.
He's fit. This guy has the same, probably started with the same mindset he had back in 01, scoring that unthinkable victory. How? Because I think Harvick's mature,
Yeah,
compared to
he
many
has
young
matured
drivers.
as
When
a
he entered the
fast player.
sport, he was light years ahead of his age. And I think that second championship is on the way. If Harvick continues racing
Sure.
like he did yesterday. Let's get into another driver here. And two drivers that surprisingly still haven't won after 10 races complete in the season. Martin Truex
Kyle
Jr. and
Busch.
Ryan Blaney.
Yeah. Oh, I thought you
And
said
Kyle
Busch.
Busch.
Sorry.
Well, I'll get into the Busch later, but Truex and Blaney are still drivers that people are questioning. How are they not winning yet? What's the missing puzzle piece?
I think his consistency.
Yes. Yes.
Just consistency. I mean, they have good runs here and there in the middle of the race, but consistency on their like pit stops and everything and like track position, that's where they lack. And that's what they need to step up on.
Yeah, I mean, Martin Truex Jr. had a run that actually reminds me of, not a lot of people remember this for some reason, but I do, the 2012 Atlanta race when I think he led over 200 laps, like almost the whole length. And then a late race caution came out. The Michael Waltrip Racing pit crew screwed up their stop, giving Hamlin the win. And this is one of the few tracks Martin Truex Jr. still hasn't won it. I mean, he's great at the mile and a halves. Atlanta has not been his cup of tea. His teammate, however, Kyle Busch, is in the same situation. And like you mentioned, he still hasn't won yet in 10 races. The 2019 champion has potential with the second place finishes that Busch has found himself in. And one thing that stands out to me is that drivers like Alex Bowman and Joey Logano took a slight dip recently in the points. But Kyle Busch, Kurt Busch, Brad Keselowski, Martin Truex Jr., they're slowly climbing up the point standings. And if you look at Busch's stats, he has 6 top 5s and 3 second-place finishes. 4 finishes third or above. And we're coming to a racetrack that suits him very well. When we preview Martinsville later in the podcast, I'll explain why. So with that said, here's the 2020 standings. After 10 races, Kevin Harvick extends his points lead to 421 over Joey Logano, who has 373 points. Yeah, I said he took a dip in the standings, but he's still second after that great run he had before the Bristol incident. Chase Elliott, third with 365 points over Brad Keselowski. Keselowski has claimed 346. Martin Truex Jr. is fifth. Denny Hamlin, Ryan Blaney, Alex Bowman, Kyle Busch, and Kurt Busch round out your top 10 in the championship. So the next race, we'll have 2 races. The Martinsville Blue Emu 500 Wednesday night. And then the Homestead 400 on Sunday for rounds 11 and 12. In my mind, I think there's 34 races this year because the schedule extended. I just have my own version of a schedule, so I think we're no longer at 32, we're at 34. We'll talk more about NASCAR's announced schedule for the summer. But first and foremost, let's get to Xfinity. And while we did have a race on Saturday, there was a race on Monday. If you weren't with us last week, yes, Bristol. So Noah Gragson, after muscling his way around Justin Allgaier, found himself in victory lane for the second time this season and in his career at the Xfinity Series. After winning Stage 1 and leading 55 laps from 9th on the grid, Noah Gragson brings Junior Motorsports to victory lane. Chase Briscoe, the points leader, started 11th, finished 2nd. Brandon Jones started 2nd, finished 3rd. Highest finishing Gibbs driver. Beneath him, the pole sitter, 81 laps led, finishing 4th, Harrison Burton. Mike Snyder, career best finish of 5th after starting 22nd, so well done for the RCR prospect. Daniel Hemrick finished in the 6th spot after starting 8th. Brandon Brown, 7th. Jeremy Clements, Josh Williams, and AJ Allmendinger round out your top 10. And here's some notables. BJ McLeod. Shout out to BJ McLeod. 11th place. Career best finish. Times 2. So he ties his career best finish after starting 24th. Ryan Sieg fell a little bit in the standings with a 16th place finish after leading 6 laps. He started 5th. Justin Allgaier ran into trouble with his teammate near the end. Won stage 2, led the most laps at 156 after starting 10th and retired from the race. Notable retirements include Riley Herbst, 27th, Austin Cindric, and Michael Annett. That was Monday. Here was what we had on Saturday for round 8 of the season.
Second dose of Dash for Cash as well. No Cup drivers.
Yep, that too. AJ Allmendinger, who led 37 laps from 30th on the grid, scored his 4th career win, first on an oval in a stock car. Well done. A lot of people would have bet against that heading into the race. Noah Gragson finished 2nd after starting 1st and leading 6 laps. Justin Haley, Allmendinger's teammate, finished 3rd after leading 8 laps. Great run for Colleague Racing. Daniel Hemrick, who started 2nd, finished in 4th. Harrison Burton started 5th, finished 5th. Ross Chastain. Justin Allgaier led a lap, started 3rd, finished 6th. Then Ross Chastain. What we got here? Thomas Bertram. Both Bristol races were great. You think there's too much hype on Herbst? I think he needs time.
I think so for some reason.
We'll get more into that later when we talk about the standings. Brandon Jones finished in 8th. Chase Briscoe led 40 laps. Started 9th, finished 9th. And Anthony Alfredo rounded out the top 10. Michael Annett, who led 3 laps and started 21st, finished 11th. Colby Howard. Shout out to Colby Howard. Career best finish of 15th after starting 34th, driving for Johnny Davis in that red Chevrolet. Austin Cindric took a blow in this race, even though he finished 16th. Winning stage 1 and stage 2 in 68 laps does not feel right.
No.
When you finish 16th. Bailey Currie, career best finish times 2, 18th. And Ryan Sieg retired, finishing 35th. And the standings after 8 races look like this. Chase Briscoe has a 4-point lead over Noah Gragson, who is climbing up the ladder now. Harrison Burton climbed down a little bit, but is catching up again. It's 3rd in the standings. Then Justin Allgaier is 4th. Ross Chastain 5th. Austin Cindric took a hit Saturday, drops down to 6th in the standings with 285 points. Justin Haley moves up to 7th. Brandon Jones drops down to 8th. Daniel Hemrick climbs up to 9th in the standings. And Ryan Sieg drops like a rock to 10th in the standings. Hasn't been a good stretch for RSS Racing. And the next race will be the Homestead 300 for rounds 9 and 10.
Let's slow down there, Joe. It's actually going to be 250 miles for 2 races. That's what I've heard, and it's confirmed. That's this Saturday, again, 250 miles, Hooters 250. Not sure for Sunday's race at noon.
So no race length announced?
So it just said 250 miles. I'm pretty sure it's miles. Why would it be kilometers? But that's what it said on Facebook and Twitter. But that's just late news. I told before I had to go eat dinner.
Oh, don't worry. Yeah. That's the first. Obviously, Homestead never held a doubleheader of any fashion in NASCAR, except for some of the. Didn't they have a promo for the super trucks at one point?
Yes. Howard, that was a non-points event with the most famous ARCA version 1 for NASCAR, the Goodies Dash series. And it was before the inaugural Busch Series race, now Xfinity, for 300 miles at that time. And at the old configuration, which was a mini Indianapolis. And a good thing they changed their form, what it looked like now, because, well, I think we all know, if you don't know, 1997, John Nemechek died.
Yeah, very sad. And that's as a
But
result, Joe named
at
his
least
son
Joe's
John
still
Hunter.
racing, and John is living up to its name, with even though it's the word Hunter in the middle.
Yeah, I think the death of John Nemechek has certainly
Yes.
kept them in the sport. 'Cause
For
it feels like
this long.
yeah, I think racing for destiny, in my opinion. Speaking of the truck series, they had a race. Now let's talk some trucks here. Actually, before we do, I want to answer Thomas's question about Riley Herbst, because Riley Herbst has now left the top 10 in the Xfinity Series standings, and he is behind the wheel of a Joe Gibbs Racing Toyota. Sure, finishing second at Fontana is a plus in my book for a rookie. Behind a rookie, mind you, Harrison Burton. But this last stretch of races for Herbst is not playing in his favor here. So let me just pull the stats up, because he finished 17th on Saturday. Of 8 races, 1 top 5 and 3 top 10s, only 4 laps led. He sits 11th in the standings.
I don't find that good. I just think it's another case. Even though I say that's a lot, but not really on here. It's just another case of daddy's money. Gets into a good ride, but has crap results. Not
Yeah,
good results that what you think. So I think the hype for him is too much, and not that good results.
I mean, I wouldn't go as far as saying daddy's money, but here's my point. I mean, we see drivers like that come and go all the time, but as for Riley Herbst, I think he really would have benefited from a truck season at KBM. But after the stretch of races, I believe he's going to enter in that truck soon, sharing the ride with obviously Kyle Busch and youngster Chandler Smith. Now, Chandler Smith is another story. When we talk ARCA next week, we'll definitely get more into Chandler Smith. And ARCA East Series comes back this weekend. So, speaking of youngsters,
sorry.
Let's go ahead and talk about some trucks now, as their 4th race is in the books. Grant Enfinger, who won the Daytona 250, had another clutch victory in overtime fashion. Enfinger, who led 7 laps, started 5th to get his 4th career win. Surprisingly, only 4 wins under his name. Grant Enfinger. Clearly shows he can win a lot more. Austin Hill. Now, this is heartbreaking. If you remember Chase Elliott in the Coca-Cola 600, oh, it's his, right? This win is Chase Elliott's. What could go wrong? Then 2 to go. William Byron, of all people, his teammate, blows a tire and spins down the apron, bringing out a yellow flag.
Yeah.
Chase Elliott pits, loses the race to Brad Keselowski.
Well, I missed the finish because Storms here wants to be stupid and not let me see the finish, and we slightly lost power. So I can't really put my inputs right there. I only saw the replay, so I can't say much. Joe?
Well, Chase Elliott blew a tire, ends up spinning off turn 2, bringing out the yellow flag with less than 3 to go. And then on the overtime restart, Grant Enfinger had a clutch pass on the Hattori sophomore to win. And Austin Hill did lead 36 laps. He started 4th, but you could see how heartbroken he was. That win was his to lose. But he still remains the points leader, as we'll get more into that later. Christian Eckes scored his career best finish for the 3rd time. A 3rd. Eckes led 18 laps from the pole. Todd Gilliland for Front Row Motorsports started 12th. He finished 4th. Zane Smith led 5 laps finished 5th and started 7th. Ross Chastain, who started 27th and led 17 laps, would finish in the 6th spot. Derek Kraus finished in 7th. Brett Moffitt, who started 3rd, finished 8th. Ben Rhodes and Stuart Friesen ran out of the top 10. I have no idea how Stuart Friesen finished 10th with that truck being damaged the way it was. But, man, that's one wheel, man. And here are the notables. Matt Crafton finished 12th. He started 14th. Ryan Truex finishing 13th for Nice Motorsports. Tyler Ankrum, who started 2nd, finished 15th. And Ankrum's teammate Chase Elliott finished 20th after leading 16 laps from the 13th spot. Kyle Busch, who had trouble on pit road and with a lap truck and Jordan Anderson, resulting in an impromptu pit stop, finished 21st after winning both Stage 1 and Stage 2, along with 37 laps from the 6th spot. And Johnny Sauter, 40th, excluded, inspection failure. He started 10th. Now, I don't know what position physically Johnny Sauter crossed the line in.
Somewhere in the top 5. But what if I remember correctly, he basically pulled a bit of a Jeff Gordon from New Hampshire, August 1998. I think, if I remember from what Bob Proctor said. Do you have that notes, Joe, or do you remember? I know someone posted
I heard it's
on
tire
here.
related.
Yeah, yes. It's about soaking, and it didn't pass. Didn't pass the whole thing.
Yeah, that threw him down to 8th in the championship. Now, here are the standings. Austin Hill remains the points leader, 163, and then 142. You do the math. Zane Smith moves up to 2nd. Zane Smith is 21 points behind Austin Hill. Grant Enfinger jumps back up to 3rd in the standings, tied with Brett Moffitt. Ben Rhodes is 5th in the championship. Christian Eckes, Sheldon Creed, Johnny Sauter, Derek Kraus, and Todd Gillen. So Sauter is thrown down 8th in the standings as a result of being DQ'd. There was one driver who I'm very impressed with, and his name is Zane Smith. I know he's a talented driver. I've seen his craft in ARCA, but if he can drive around Cup regulars like that at Charlotte and have a bold restart mechanism like Atlanta, then he may be a championship contender here. Now, we know how competitive the Truck Series nature is, especially for 2020. It's hard to be exact on who is a lock for the championship. But if Zane Smith keeps up his momentum, he might find himself lifting up a trophy at Phoenix, supposedly Phoenix. So their next race will be Homestead 200 for round 5 of the season. Now, let's take off the fenders and let's go ahead and race at 220 miles an hour for the first time this season at Texas Motor Speedway. Shout out to Eddie Gossage for making this work. Thank you for allowing this race to happen. For the Texas 300, round 4 of 14 for the 2020 IndyCar Championship. Kicks off not a 600-kilometer race, but it was a 300-miler due to the race day protocol. How did they do it? Practice for an hour.
Qualifying, and then go straight into the race.
A shortened race to keep everything
Well
packed in
balanced.
1 day schedule. Scott Dixon,
Yeah,
who
baby.
led 157 laps from 2nd on the grid, scored his 47th career win and his 4th at Texas Motor Speedway, tying Sam Hornish Jr. for the most wins at the racetrack. Simon Pagenaud finished 2nd for his 33rd career podium. Started 3rd. Joseph Newgarden, last year's champion, finished in the third spot after leading 41 laps from the pole, scoring his 30th career podium. And outside the podium, it looks like this. Zach Veach finished fourth. He led 2 laps, started fifth, and scored his scored his career best finish for the second time in his career. Ed Carpenter finished fifth. It's been a miserable weekend for his team, but as for the owner himself, not a bad race. Started 13th. Connor Daly. How about this? Connor Daly for Carlin. One of the more weaker components of the IndyCar series. They had to withdraw Philippe Nasr heading into the weekend due to financial issues. They finished 6th with Connor Daly behind the wheel. Now, mind you, he started 19th. Let's see down the list. Colton Herta, by many, a championship favorite, finished 7th after starting 14th. Ryan Hunter-Reay, who was my pick, ran into trouble pre-race. Had to serve an early race pit penalty due to missing the start. And he finished 8th. Oliver Askew, in his debut, finished in the 9th spot after starting 20th. Now that's impressive. Last year's Indy Lights champion. Making moves already in 2020. And Tony Kanaan, in his final race at Texas, finished 10th in that retro 711 livery. Now, here are some of the notables. Retirement on lap 193. I'm thinking Felix Rosa because lap 200, Charlie Kimball finished 11th. He wrecked on the final lap. Will Power, 13th. He was pretty up and down. Started 6th, but couldn't maintain that top 10 run. And Felix Rosenquist, who many thought could have won that race, made contact with a lap car and James Hinchcliffe and had to settle for 20th. So where do we start?
First, we got to talk about Scott Dixon's performance, man. Talk about that, man. I know he started second off the grid. He lost to getting pole by Joseph Newgarden. He gave Newgarden a good run for his money, but the overall race itself, man, he's just been dominant every lap.
Austin?
No. I didn't like how he was been more of an aggressor lately since he's been winning those championships. He's basically like the MTJ of IndyCar. Since his first championship, he's really changed, Danny. He's really changed about his attitude, how he drives, and how he can't really touch an IndyCar or else you're done. And just the way how he drives, maneuvers around, and blocks. That's why I'm not really much of a fan of him right now. And a bit of willpower as well, but that's a different story.
I mean, I get what you're saying, but at the end of the day, when he got a block, he got a block. You know?
At the expense of Rosenquist. I mean, hey, we saw this in Mid-Ohio last year.
Just so you know, he did not block Rosenquist. That was a separate.
But it put Rosenquist in that position.
Plenty of other races.
That is a separate incident by itself.
So the standings look like this after one race. Scott Dixon has a 13-point lead, 53 points claimed over Simon Pagenaud, who has 40 points, the 2016 Series champion. So 5-time champion looking for number 6. Remember, 2 more championships, and he reaches AJ Foyt's record. Joseph Newgarden is 3rd with 37 points claimed. Zach Veach. Now, Zach Veach has been scrutinized in the offseason as, There is a lot of cars in Andretti Autosport this year, but is Zach Veach good enough to become one of them? Questions like that. He sits fourth in the standings. Then Ed Carpenter, who's racing on a part-time basis for the ovals only, including the Indy 500, sits in fifth. Connor Daly, sixth. Colton Herta, seventh. Brian Hunter Ray, eighth. Oliver Askew, ninth, and Tony Kanaan, 10th. Just one race. The next event will be on July 4th for the Indianapolis Grand Prix, sharing the same weekend as part of the Brickyard 400. They have a month to get ready for race 2. Obviously, there's a 14-race calendar with many events subject to change. What drivers will make everyone look twice when we reach Indy?
What you will repeat the question again? What driver will
stand out at Indy?
Alexander
my gut
Rossi.
is telling me willpower. Either willpower or someone from Andretti Green.
Well, how could you not go with Simon Pagenaud? Isn't he like one of the best at the Indy Grand Prix?
Of course, he is one of the best at Indy Grand Prix. That's why I didn't
thought you were
mention
talking
him.
about the 500.
No, we are going to talk about the 500 later. I should have said the Indy GP.
Yeah.
In fact, there are 2 Indy GPs this year.
Armani, please come back. Sorry.
Yeah, I would love to have him back. If you're watching this, Armani,
Daniel keeps saying it all
throw
the
in the
time.
towel what you're doing and come here. All right. So with that said, 80's in the books. We'll get more into that stuff in a month from now when it's all right, white and blue. Unfortunately, it has not been that kind of blue. It's been black and blue for some of these Supercross riders. Yes, 2 more races at Salt Lake City, to be exact, for rounds 12 and 13 of their 17-race calendar. Obviously, they're finishing the season at Salt Lake City. So race 1, which was on Wednesday, Cooper Webb in his KTM won over Kawasaki's Eli Tomac. Tomac, the points leader. Zach Osborne and Jason Anderson, 2 Husqvarnas, 3rd and 4th, and Roxon's Honda 5th. Like I said, black and blue. You guys are the best guys ever. Thank you, Donovan Martinez. Race 2. Eli Tomac won in the Kawasaki, extending that points lead, which we'll get into in a little bit, over Cooper Webb's KTM. The Husqvarnas of Jason Anderson, this time outperforming Zach Osborne, and Malcolm Stewart 5th in his Honda. So that was yesterday. Race 2 was yesterday. Race 1 was Wednesday for rounds 12 and 13. Standings now, 301 points claimed for Eli Tomac, 26 points ahead of Ken Roczen. Yeah, 26 points ahead of Ken Roczen. I cannot do mental math. Cooper Webb is third with 269 points, and Justin Barsha.
No, he wasn't saying anything racial.
No.
No. I know.
You said excuse me? Like, what do you say? Like you were upset or something. Keep going.
So yeah, there are standings.
Yeah, let's pretend I don't exist.
Yeah, enough of the mumbo jumbo. Salt Lake City, obviously, will have 2 more races for this upcoming week, rounds 14 and 15 of 17. So 2 more races there, and then of course next week we'll have the last 2 races. Once again, Ken Roczen, the short end of the stick.
Yeah, unfortunately. You see, the it's always someone catching him. It's either Tomac or Cooper Webb. He does. This is not just one race. It happens every race. Every race. It happens. It happened in Daytona. It happened in San Diego.
And it looks like the championship is once again going to slip away from Roczen.
I really hope not, man. But
unless something drastically bad happens
yes.
to Eli Tomac. And it's going to take a while because there are now 4 races remaining. 2 more this week and the last 2 next week. All right, so let's get into the race previews now. We will talk about, for the NASCAR Cup Series, Martinsville and Homestead for rounds 11 and 12. For the Xfinity Series, we'll have Homestead for rounds 9 and 10. And for round 5 at Homestead, the NASCAR Truck Series. Unfortunately, I'm not going to attend either one of those races. Of course, I plan to go to Martinsville. I was going to go to Martinsville on May 9th. That did not happen. Press F for respects.
Okay.
Yes, I know
I had to do that as well.
I could not do that if I tried because I have a laptop. Obviously, I was supposed to go to Martinsville. Oh, it's wireless too. How long do those batteries last?
Don't lose your train of thoughts.
All right, and Homestead, I was supposed to attend on March 21st. Obviously, fans are permitted to go. I can't go. I can just stop my life and attend. So there's that. I wish life was better. I wish I had a teleporting device, maybe a drone of my own at the racetrack, but not. This is not the year.
Yeah.
So let's start off with Martinsville. Wednesday night is back again. Of course, Ty Dillon will have the Hump Day paint scheme, Geico and the Camel. Yeah.
Oh boy.
And there's a lot of stats. Obviously, Martinsville Speedway is the only remaining track from the inaugural season back in 1949. So bear with me with these stats for round 11. Last year's winners obviously were Brad Keselowski and Martin Truex Jr. The first race was Red Byron in 1949. Just a 15-car grid in the inaugural NASCAR strictly stock division. But
dirt track.
Yeah,
at that time.
Dirt track. A few years later, they would go to pavement, which is what we have today. Richard Petty is the king of Martinsville, as well as the king of NASCAR. 15 victories, more than any other driver. 4 more than Darrell Waltrip, who has 11 wins at the track. Jeff Gordon and Jimmy Johnson, the 2 Hendrick legends, each share 9 victories apiece. Jeff Gordon scored his last win at this racetrack just under 5 years ago. Rusty Wallace, like Jeff Gordon, scored his final win here, and also 6 others, putting him with 7 victories total at this racetrack. Dale Earnhardt, Fred Lorenzen, and Cale Yarbrough have 6 victories here, while Denny Hamlin, the hometown star, has 5 wins, including 2008, being probably his best one, in my opinion, and 2015 with that duel with Keselowski. Jeff Bodine has 4 wins, while Jim Pascal, Harry Gant, Lee Petty, Ricky Rudd, and Tony Stewart have 3 wins. Buck Baker, Kurt Busch, Kyle Busch, Bobby Isaac, Junior Johnson, Brad Keselowski, Mark Martin, Herb Thomas, Curtis Turner, Bob Welborn, and Rex White have 2 wins. And as for the spring race at Martinsville, these teams have the most victory. Petty Enterprises with 12, assuming all of them from Richard Petty. Hendrick Motorsports with 8. Team Penske with 7 wins. Joe Gibbs Racing has 6. Richard Childress Racing with 4. Holman Moody, Dygar Motorsports, Junior Johnson and Associates, and Stuart Haas Racing have 3 wins. While John Eanes, Carl Kiefer, Wood Brothers, Mach 1, and Roush Family Racing would have 2 wins at the spring race at Martinsville. As for manufacturers, Chevy has 26 wins at the spring race in Martinsville, over 14 wins from Ford. Plymouth had 7 wins, so did Pontiac. No, Pontiac had 5 wins, as well as Dodge. Oldsmobile and Toyota share 4 wins apiece. Mercury has 2 wins, while Hudson, Chrysler, and Buick had 1 win there. So, like I said, they've raced every year of the NASCAR Cup Series existence since 1949. Who will add their name to the list?
Well, I know is Eric Almirola, I think, unless it was Ryan Blaine, will be on the pole for that day. Again, random draw. And no practice. Just get on there and race for 500 laps. But yeah, it is.
You know what?
Yeah, Ford takes the first 4 position with the first Stewart-Haas with Clint Bowyer. First Chevy is Alex Ballman in 8th. Only Toyota,
Wait,
two Toyotas in
hold
top.
on.
Two Toyotas with Truex with 5th and then Kyle Busch in 7th. Danny?
Wait, you were saying, you said the first 4 positions belong to Stuart Haas?
Fords.
Ford, just
Oh,
Fords.
Fords. Okay.
Two of them are Stewart-Haas. 2 of them are Penske.
Oh, of course.
If all 3 of their drivers in the top 10.
You know what that screams. I'm not gonna say it.
Team orders.
Yeah.
But here's the thing.
No, not team orders. Manufacturer orders.
Yeah. Well, hey, let's be fair. You picked a number out of a hat, and there's your starting spot. But unlike Chevy and Toyota, Fords are really the manufacturer in NASCAR where there are multiple teams competing for wins against each other. Now, obviously, Dale Earnhardt, Jeff Gordon in the 90s was one thing with Chevy. But Ford has always had multiple teams competing against each other for wins. And manufacturer supremacy. Obviously, Stewart-Haas Racing in 2018 showed that kind of performance with Clint Bowyer won. And then late in the season when Penske came in clutch, Joey Logano muscled his way around Martin Truex Jr. to get the win and eventually the championship. Despite Stewart-Haas Racing having the more wins for Ford in 2018, Penske's Joey Logano would still win the championship. Yeah, I know the chase for the cup, the playoffs, I know that exists, but it's still stats, and he played by the rules and won. Where are we at here? I think Penske may be the better Ford team, because as far as I'm concerned, Kevin Harvick was the only Stewart-Haas Racing machine to finish in the top 15 last week or yesterday. How would this team perform without Kevin Harvick? Think about it. Well, now let's get into race predictions. Enough of the mumbo jumbo. I said that a lot. Or I've said it twice. Who is going to win this race? And my answer, this is a bold one. Maybe it's not bold because he has 9 wins here. Jimmy Johnson.
Okay, thank you.
That would be a popular.
If you're gonna say a Toyota driver, I was gonna go.
Toyota drivers aren't that far from victory lane at Martinsville. Yeah. Anyways, if you really think about it, Martin Truex Jr., after redeeming his loss in 2018, came back and won 2019, and then of course, he dominated the race. Led, I think, over 300 laps. Which is beyond me.
Hey, just so you know, I'm going with Johnson on this one. It's long overdue for him to get a win.
Okay, sweep all people who are talking here. The guy what I'm wearing on my shirt. How ironic. Still a great shirt I got.
Yeah.
Even on the numbers wrong.
Well, you need to get a new shirt back in those days because he kept getting championships. So those shirts would be outdated quickly. That's a good thing if you're a Johnson fan.
Even though I don't think there's going to be this number. I don't see it.
What's that?
Progress to 8
What's
is
that?
growing.
What's that mean, eh? You think he's gonna get 8?
No, no.
Do
Never
I
say
think he's
never,
going to get
man.
8 championships?
Wait,
No. Do I
hold
think
on,
he's going to win? Yes.
That
hold
answer is
on,
correct.
hold on, guys. Hang on a minute, right?
Danny, go ahead.
The last Hendrick driver made it to the championship for in his retirement season was Jeff Gordon. He
Yeah.
nearly won the championship. Nearly won his 5th championship. Came up short. That being the case, that this is Johnson's last year, he might make it to the championship 4 in Phoenix, which is one of his best tracks, by the way.
I can keep in mind Phoenix, but that's we'll wait till November to talk about that.
All right, so I guess we're all cheering for Johnson on Wednesday. Now, there is another race. So that was round 11. Here's round 12 for the Homestead 400. Obviously, this is the first time since 2001. This is not the season closing race. So we get to finally see a race at Homestead with drivers in different mentalities of the season, not fighting all their might for a championship, especially in the championship format era since 2014, where we see guys go above and beyond, sometimes too much, like if you've seen the Carl Edwards situation or maybe Kyle Busch in 2018. But here's the thing. They're just out there. It's now round 12. It's not round 36. It's round 12. Before I get any further, here are the race stats. Kyle Busch won the race last year. Speaking of Joe Gibbs Racing, they have a lot of success here. Tony Stewart won the first race at this facility back in 1999 when they had flat bank corners.
Back to
Which,
back.
Yep,
Back for him.
Tony Stewart did go back to back. I have very itchy nose. I do not have COVID. Most wins, Greg Biffle and Tony Stewart with 3 wins apiece. Greg Biffle went on a tear in the mid-2000s at this track. Carl Edwards and Denny Hamlin, as well as Kyle Busch, have 2 victories. Most team wins. With Kyle Busch winning last year, Joe Gibbs Racing now ties Roush Family Racing with the most victories by a team at this track with 7 apiece, while Stewart Haas Racing and Hendrick Motorsports have 2 wins. Ford, remember it used to be Ford Championship Weekend? They lead with 8 victories in manufacturers. Chevy with 5, as well as Toyota, Pontiac with 2, and Dodge with 1. So, there are your stats. This track obviously resembles Atlanta before 1997. Who is going to prevail this time?
Your pick first.
Well, it's tough to find one driver that prevails at this track because the driver with most wins are 2 with 3 apart. And if the winningest driver here only has 3 wins, then that means someone new is going to win at Homestead. My pick is William Byron.
Wow. I have no idea why. I mean, he drives a Ford, and depending who's second place, I may not like him, but at this point, whatever. Kevin Harvick.
Harvick's on a roll. I wouldn't see any reason why he shouldn't win that race. So there's the picks.
Yeah, he's only won once, even though that was in a Chevy, and with Stewart Haas.
Oh yeah, and what happened? He ended up winning the big trophy, his championship, 2014. So now, with that said, the NASCAR Xfinity Series has 2 races at Homestead for rounds 9 and 10. Last year, Tyler Reddick scored the victory, also picking up his 2nd championship that year. First race was won by Dale Jarrett back in 1995 with the old layout.
Yeah,
As for
finish if you saw that.
Oh yeah, the leaders took each other out. Yeah. Most victories, Joe Nemechek with 3 over Jeff Burton, Kyle Busch, Brad Keselowski, Matt Kenseth, and Tyler Reddick, who all share 2 wins.
So basically, it's a free-for-all for Xfinity.
Yeah. Most team victories, Joe Gibbs Racing with 4 over Nemco, Roush, and Penske, as well as Richard Childress Racing, those teams have 3 wins apiece, and Junior Motorsports have 2 victories at Homestead. For most make wins, Chevrolet has 11, Ford with 7, Toyota with 4, 2 wins for Dodge, and 1 win for Pontiac. So now that the stats are there and the inexperience is on the racetrack, let's go ahead and predict the winner. Austin, what do you got? Or who do you got?
Yes. Last mile and a half, he did decent, top 10. I don't see why, even though he didn't lead any laps. Justin Allgaier.
We see Justin Allgaier. It seems I'm going to pick Justin Allgaier. He leads the most laps, but cannot close the deal and win the race. So I'm going to pick Harrison Burton. And I have a feeling it's going to be 1 and 2, but with Allgaier in front, just because I picked Burton. So I'm speaking in defense of myself before the race begins. Well, that's for race 1. We have another race Sunday morning. Who's going to win that event?
Justin Allgaier. Unless they're inverting the field. I think they should be inverting it. I don't know how.
We'll have to wait on what NASCAR says about that. They still haven't given all the details about procedures for Saturday and Sunday.
For Darlington and Charlotte for Cup, 20 drivers. So I see, but if it's 40 drivers or 37, I see like 15 drivers inverting.
So I'm going to go ahead and pick Justin Allgaier for race 2 to play it safe. Now watch him win race 1 and Harrison Burton win race 2. We'll have to see. As for the Truck Series, round 5, it's the Homestead 200. Austin Hill won the race last year. Dave Rezendes won the first race in 96. Only 2 drivers have multiple victories with 2 apiece, Todd Bodine and Kyle Busch. Most team victories, Kyle Busch Motorsports with 4, Ultra Motorsports with 3, Germain Racing, ThorSport Racing, and Hattori Racing Enterprises have 2 wins apiece. Toyota leads the manufacturers for wins with 10 over Chevy and Ford. They have 5 victories, and Dodge has 3. So the stats are in. Let's hear about our picks. Austin, I'm going to start with you.
I figured you would be. Well, we don't know what the entry lists are since it's not released yet. However, with the people that usually enter, I'm going out on a big, huge limb. Raphael Lessard, the Canadian.
I bet Justin has a smile on his face right now. Justin, if you're watching, hi. He's at a friend's house, so that's why he's absent from this podcast. So my prediction, he won last year. He's going to win this year. Austin Hill, especially after what happened Saturday, after just losing the race, he's going to come back and win. This kind of track suits Austin Hill. Any track where there's a rhythm, he's going to succeed. So I'm going with numero 16. All right, so now let's talk some headlines here. And we'll get started with, obviously, Alan Bestwick. Obviously, a lot of NASCAR fans, especially from the past 30 years, are familiar with Alan Bestwick's material and his commentary. It was reported that he prevailed through COVID-19. So, well done to
That's something I'm
AB.
just now learning. I did not hear about this. Well done.
And remember, in early to mid-April, he had a race that he was part of the commentary crew for, from the Monza Oval. Too bad it's not going to be remembered for him joining.
About
Obviously,
something else that
yeah,
we do not want to say.
If you haven't lived under a rock, you knew what happened then. But yeah, great to see Alan doing well after going through a tough fight. Formula One. Let's talk F1 now. There were 8 races in the 2020 opening calendar that has been confirmed. And let's go ahead and list those events. The Austrian Grand Prix will have 2 races. The first race will open the season on July 5th at the Red Bull Ring. And then the same race will happen again for round 2 on July 12th. Round 3 will be the Hungarian Grand Prix at the Hungaroring on July 19th. There will be 2 British Grand Prix events. Race 1 will be on August 2nd for round 4, and on August 9th for round 5, race 2 at the British Grand Prix. The Spanish Grand Prix will be race 6 on August 16th. Round 7 will be the Belgian Grand Prix at Spa on August 30th, which is actually interesting because that's the same date, just like the first Austrian Grand Prix. So the same weekend as last year. So at least they align. But obviously there will be no fans at Austria or Silverstone as far as we're concerned in present day June here. The Italian Grand Prix at Monza will be round 8 on September 6th. 8 races have to be complete in order for a world championship to be crowned. Where will the FIA stand? Knowing that we're less than a month from the kickoff of the season here. And they finally put the pieces together.
Well, if Justin were here, he'll give his thoughts. Since I'm not a big F1 fan, I just watch it just for my entertainment, and plus there's nothing else on. This is mainly something that you should talk about a lot. So
right.
Sorry, I don't.
Oh, that's fine. I just wanted to see if you had any input on it.
I don't like Lewis. I do not like Lewis Hamilton. Said it done.
A lot of people can say the same on that. Speaking of Formula 1, Formula 2 and Formula 3 have also announced their plans to join the F1 weekend at the given events. So obviously they're not going to have every team win in this situation. We see this at sports car racing. Not everybody will have the same advantages, but this is the reality of COVID-19. Speaking of IMSA, the WeatherTech Sports Car Championship from IMSA, they are working with U.S. Homeland Security to assist members of drivers and teams with foreign travel. The season resumes on July 4th with a Daytona sprint race. Now, as we're already aware, not every team in sports car racing will have the same advantage. One of those teams include Porsche's factory program. Many people are shocked by this, but they've dealt with an economic letdown, and so has many other manufacturers like Bentley. And we'll get into Bentley a little bit later here, but Porsche will no longer race in the GTLM class next year at IMSA. In 2021, we already know that they've pulled out their American program from the 24 Hours of Le Mans this year due to cost measures. I have a feeling that Porsche will be back in a few years' time once the money returns. Let's see what else we have. And unfortunately, as many of you guys know, if you've been living under a rock, and you know, Holden will be terminated by GM, and the name will be retired in 2021. And Holden made it clear that 2020 is their final season supporting factory supercars teams, which is the end of an era in Australian vehicles. And I mean, whether you love him or hate him, because obviously Ford fans despise Holden teams, and Holden fans despise Ford fans. It's a long rivalry, and it kind of sucks to see it come to an end due to an office decision. But we just have to get with the times here. It's just Hopefully, we'll see those third-party manufacturers return in the sport. Nissan pulled out after 2019 finished. They had 4 entries from Kelly Racing. Volvo pulled out after 2016 with Gary Rogers Motorsports, Gary Rogers had to withdraw from the competition after 2019. Mercedes and Airbus work well hand in hand. The door is wide open for new manufacturers to come back. There's a rumor about BMW and Andretti Waukesha United to make a debut in 2021. Obviously, they work with BMW in Formula E. Moving on with that, let's get into Bentley. Their fairy tale story is coming to an end. And why is that? On Super Bowl Sunday, well, for Australians, it's in the middle of the night, but for Americans, it's Saturday for us. A big race in Bathurst is held called the Liqui Moly Bathurst 12 Hours. And Bentley, who they always for years had a GT3 program, never usually up to speed. Obviously, Porsches are a little bit faster. Audi, McLaren, usually they're ahead of the game. Bentley had a statement-making victory on that day, winning the Bathurst 12 Hours. And just 4 months later, they're going to immediately suspend their GT3 program in the Intercontinental GT Championship, which I think is really sad. But they had mentioned that they're still open to reopening next year. But this is just another dose of reality for COVID-19. Let's see what else we had. We'll get into NASCAR in a little bit, but let's continue on with the international stuff. Glickenhaus. If you guys don't know already, Le Mans will have a new class, a new overall contending class called the Hypercars next year. The LMH will debut in 2021. Glickenhaus will field 2 cars to the 2021 Le Mans 24 Hours next year. More to come on that. Stay tuned to the Sports Car 365. I always subscribe to them on social media. Follow, whatever you call it. Follow, like. W Series canceled for 2020. That's kind of unfortunate. But at the same time, their drivers come from all backgrounds, so they have some sort of racing to fall back on. McLaren suspends driver development program in British GT until 2021. Remember, they laid off over 1,000 employees last week. Well, with all the bad out of the way, let's get into some good here.
Yay.
First and foremost, NHRA. Now, I don't follow too much of NHRA drag racing, but Lucas Oil Raceway, also known as Indianapolis Raceway Park, will hold the first race back for drag racing on July 12th. So that's very, very cool. NASCAR's 2020 summer schedule is announced, but before we talk about that, let's talk about what we're going to see next year. For the first time since 2011, a new racetrack will appear on the NASCAR Cup Series schedule. A new facility, that is, excluding the Charlotte Roval in 2018.
Well, not really new, but new for a Cup Series. Nashville Super Speedway.
Yes, in Lebanon, Tennessee, which is about a half hour in the outskirts of Music City itself. Well, the history of Nashville Super Speedway goes back to the expansion of mile-and-a-half ovals. In 2001, or it was announced before 2001 that there will be 2 new tracks, Chicagoland Speedway in Joliet, Illinois, nearby Chicago, Kansas Speedway in Kansas City, to expand in new, bigger markets. Obviously, Nashville, Tennessee is a big market itself. Tennessee Titans and the Nashville Predators being held in those cities, being held in those regions. But here's the thing: the racetrack has always been a small oval, usually not compatible for modern Cup Series racing. They've always held Busch and Truck Series events until the end of 2000, when the Nashville Superspeedway was built by Dover Motorsports Incorporated, the owners of Dover Speedway in Delaware.
Yep, made of concrete, not asphalt.
Yes, which is pretty cool in my opinion, because it was the first to see a mile and a half oval in concrete. But with that said, there was another track that was open, another mile and a half oval in a pretty decent venue, like marketplace, called Kentucky Speedway in Sparta, Kentucky. They both opened in 2001 with lower series racing, including IRL racing, which is now the current IndyCar series. But the fans showed up for the Busch series and the Truck series. They were ecstatic, especially at Kentucky. And while Kentucky had fans and tickets selling out, Nashville was always behind trying to catch up. They never did. And in 2011, while Kentucky debuted in the Cup Series, it was what it looked like to be goodbye for Nashville Superspeedway.
It's like there would, yep. I sort of still remember when I was watching the last nationwide race from SS, said on the bottom ticker, unless it was speed, that there was be no racing in 2012. And I'm like, aw. It's like it had decent racing and now it's gone. It's
Well, you have to remember why the track was
used
built in the first place.
for occasionally for some test for just not really NASCAR
Vehicle
testing,
testing.
but yeah, something like that. And looking at Google
Passenger
Maps,
vehicles, Nissan
yeah,
in USA.
and there's plenty of like extra
GT
used cars
Academy.
around the track.
Remember a reality show?
Yeah.
Remember the reality show called GT Academy
Nope.
for Gran Turismo drivers to go race in real life?
No.
If you watch more endurance racing, you would definitely say, oh yeah, I remember Lucas Ordóñez, that driver from Spain. He was probably the first driver to go from sim racing to real life racing and succeed. Probably before William Byron did, but that happened in the early 2010s when sim racing was considered more like a game, like an arcade kind of thing. But people have opened up to sim racing now. The first season of GT Academy in the US was held at the Nashville Superspeedway post 2011. But like I said, why Nashville Superspeedway? Here's the thing. The fairgrounds, while they are in some capacity of jeopardy and function at the same time, because an MLS stadium wants to build in that land.
Right.
Or on that land. In 2001, they would not have been suitable for the modern day Cup Series, because after 1984, the Cup Series left fairgrounds. And it's understandable. Even though fans want to see short track racing return, obviously tracks like North Wilkesboro, I think NASCAR owes Wilkesboro a lot, especially after the last decade and a half. And same with Rockingham, because at least the track is doable for the Cup Series, but modern Cup cars probably wouldn't fare out well at the Nashville Fairgrounds. Maybe Xfinity trucks, but definitely ARCA. ARCA, of course, that track's a staple in the ARCA calendar. Dover Motorsports has lended one of their races in Delaware to Nashville Superspeedway. How will this go?
Yes, it's never cookie cutter, but but the banking, from what I remember, is not that high, and again, it's concrete, and it's not really a mile and a half as well. So I see it running like fine and fantastic, like they did in Trucks, Busch, and ARCA since Free went there, and they're all stock cars. So I don't see anything different. It's still going to be a race. It's just going to be on a bit of a different surface. Just for next year, third racetrack to be on concrete, I do believe. Unless I'm missing one, but I don't think I am. Bristol, Dover, and now Nashville SS.
Bristol's like soaked with that PJ1 though.
Yeah. Can
But
we
at the same time,
bring
it's
it back
hard
to
to really
pavement,
alter
please?
Bristol. Take off the track makeup. Okay, that was a bad joke. Rocket has pulled sponsorship from Williams. Obviously, if you've not seen the Williams memes in Formula One, troll Formula One on Facebook, that's a funny group, then you've been living under a rock, which is kind of bad because Williams has been a long time team in Formula One. Austin, what you got?
No, I was gonna say living under a rock. Again, not much F1 fan, just watching it. It's just because of the history. 70 years, but not a good way to start their 70 years. Ooh.
Williams, with that said, seeking buyers for a portion of the team. They've been struggling in the last few years. I've not won a race since, of all people, Pastor Maldonado, 2012. And yeah, it's perplexing, I know. These are real stats. Pastor Maldonado delivered Williams their last victory in 2012 in the Spanish Grand Prix. I'm not making that up. Okay, now more open wheel racing. I apologize. I just cannot stop itching that nose. I do not have COVID. I write that on the board 50,000 times. The Indy 500. The Indy 500 will not be ran without fans. That was a statement in an interview by Roger Penske. The Indy 500 is scheduled to run on August 23rd. Is there enough time to make this work?
No, I really don't think so. I don't know why, but I got a feeling the answer is going to be no. But you're probably going to say yes, right?
Unfortunately, if the race can be ran without fans, I would understand that. But it's the Indy 500, and it's the first year under new ownership. Penske that's a decision nobody would want to make. But I think Penske tried to get fans at the Brickyard 400, which turned out to be a no-go. What does this mean for August 23rd? Will the government allow it?
No. Unfortunately, I'm sticking with no. I don't think they'll agree with it.
Another event that makes me worried about compatibility is the 24 Hours of Le Mans.
Yeah,
they hold over 200,000 people.
Yeah, all around the track. It's a big track, but I don't see any fans as well for that.
No. The Nürburgring 24 Hours has over 100,000 people in attendance.
As well for that as well.
Well, we're just going to stick with who knows. And with that said, when we have more information, check us out next week. I'm glad to bring in more discussions of the Below the Yellow Line podcast. This is our good stopping point here. Thank you so much for watching episode 62. For my partners, Daniel Ford and Austin LaPlante, I'm Joe Laney Pavon. We'll see you guys next week, and have a good one.